Yeah, thank you very much for getting the opportunity to share with you a little bit my vision on the future of mobility. It's not actually my vision. We work at the Technical University of Eindhoven a lot on the future of mobility. It's one of the three key strategic themes for research, and yeah, it's a lot of aspects in mobility that's changing very fast, and I want to just go through you to some trends and some developments that we see as very important for the next future, for the near future. Let me go through these trends in the first place. If you look at the information age, the Internet of Things has reached the world, and in the old days, when you were looking for something, you had a desperate need for a certain, let's say maybe a single or something, or a piece of furniture, and you desperately wanted to have that, and maybe 1 kilometer ahead somebody had exactly that what you were looking for. In the old days this was just like that, and you never probably would find out that there was a need for something, and also for something that was 1 kilometer ahead, and it was never found. Now today we have eBay and all kind of other services that make this information and explicit, so people will find what they need. This is actually an essential thing what's also happening as we see it in mobility. Nowadays the demand and the supply of mobility gets more and more explicit. If there's somebody that wants to go from A to B, and there's a way to go from A to B, there's a free seat in a car, or there's any other thing, there's maybe a train going from A to B just at that time that he wants it, that will be made explicitly. That's already happening now. So with this information age reaching now also the mobility arena, we see that this supply and demand is getting more and more explicit and fully transparent. And you see automatically you see a lot of services coming up. I don't know if you know any of these services. Uber is very famous, at least you see this already in the United States coming up. It's actually maybe a better, but this is a political discussion, better alternative for the taxi services. At least in San Francisco you see that most of the rides nowadays are done by Uber. It's just a link, an application linking a driver with a free seat to somebody who needs to go from A to B. Now there's a lot of fuss, they have their ups and downs, they have a lot of discussion with the taxi companies, which means that they're onto something good, I guess, because otherwise these discussions would not take place. So Snapcar is another initiative that you might have heard of. It's just when somebody has a car and doesn't need it for a day, he could lend it to somebody else. Snapcar jumps in, does all the insurance and the maintenance of the insurance things, and you can use somebody else's car with this service. It's already coming up very, very quickly. Together, that's a ride-sharing app, and I don't know if you have heard of Transit. They're already trying to combine free seats with packages that have to deliver from A to B. So if you drive from A to B, there's also a package at A that wants to go to B, that needs to go to B. You can share that ride, if that package can share a ride. All the things are coming up because the supply-demand information is changing mobility very fast. Another trend is, as you might have heard, is the urbanization of cities. And that has a lot to do with mobility as well, because the problems in cities are far different than if you look at other urban situation. In cities, for instance, you see that a car is not automatically the best thing to choose. And a car used to be, when I was 18, I wanted to have a car because that meant freedom. That's still true probably when you're living somewhere outside the city. But in a city, a car means less freedom sooner than more freedom, because you have to park it somewhere, and you have to drive around 45 minutes before you find a parking spot, etc. So this trend that people live more and more in cities also has an effect on mobility. And especially the young generation does not automatically go to cars. I lent this picture from Paul, by the way. Thanks for that. This is the explanation why the Generation Y is called Generation Y. But the important thing is that this Generation Y does not automatically grab to the car. They are very much more open to do multimodal. They want to be online. And that's, at this moment at least, much easier in a train than in a car, and safer. Another very important trend is, and it's not so much a trend, this is just a fact actually, is the Moore's law. As you might have known it, that's just the law behind the fact that computing power of our systems doubles every year, more or less. So every year, a computer of $1,000 can do twice as much as the year before. This is the reason that I just had a comparison between the Apollo 11 that brought a man to the moon and brought it back, which is even better job to do. They had less computing power than such an annoying birthday card with this song in it, with a very long-lasting battery, I could say, because I have children. But so the computing power of this 2-cent chip is just as much as this big Apollo 11. This is also continuing. Also for the next years, we will be sure that the computing power will double up every year. And yeah, the effects of that are enormous. This is the reason that all the ICT developments and the mobility developments go exponentially instead of linearly. That's why technology and also our world is changing so fast. And the fact is that this world now also has entered the vehicles. Cars are no longer mechanical systems. Cars are electronical systems. And the difference between one and another car is made by software rather than by hardware nowadays. It's even turning into, as I said, a data producing machine. A modern car produces 100 terabytes of data. That's a very hard to grab number, but it's a hell of a lot of data. Most of it has no value, we can throw it away, but more and more of this data is very clever and can be used for all kinds of purposes. I will come back to that. If you compare the new Mercedes S-Class, it has more computers than a Boeing 747. It has 100 times more lines of software code. So these vehicles turn into incredibly intelligent machines. And these iPad on wheels, as you can look to the vehicles, they are also, and then now the real fun starts sharing data with each other. And that's really where the exponential growth of the services and also the mobility technology is even further accelerated. This is a very old picture of how a Mercedes car sees its surroundings. You know, with ADAS, advanced driver assistance systems, and also the developments in autonomous vehicles, one of the most important things is that cars have to look around to make a picture of the surrounding in order to know where to head and how to support the driver in his driving tasks. Now, you can see that this already has a quite big picture of what's happening around, but if you expand it with Moore's law, you know that in the future these cars will have a perfect vision of their surroundings, and there's a lot of information over there. Probably one of the reasons that also Google is looking at autonomous cars, because the data these cars will produce will probably make them the big data producers in the future. So car is no longer a mechanical system. In the future, it will be a big data provider. So another thing, last trend I'm going to mention is that nowadays vehicles know their way quite well. So with all these systems and these driver assistance systems, the car every now and then knows how to drive better than the driver. You're all perfect drivers, I know that, but in some cases the car can help you in order to prevent to have an accident. You know, these ESP systems, the anti-slip control, anti-braking systems, they help you every now and then. Nowadays, the cars do not also know how to help you in critical situations, they also can bring you from A to B on the best way. I think in a couple of years, probably most cars will have navigation systems, be it installed in the car or a separate system or on a smartphone. Everybody can use navigation systems, and these get more and more perfect day by day. So at a certain moment, people know exactly how to come from A to B. Nowadays, cars are also starting to outsmart the road authorities, because road authorities used to have the power of trying to steer people. Now that's disappearing. That's a very important trend for the future. Now, this is just to show that cars may be in the future even better equipped in order to put people from A to B, because if the sign says that if you go to Volendam you have to keep right, every now and then because of traffic jams it might be better to take another route. So the flexibility of these in-car systems can put a city on another public signage. So, just to summarize these trends, the supply and demand of mobility is getting more and more explicit and transparent to all people, and people will make use of that. Urbanization leveraged the multimodal traveling, especially in the younger generation, because they're less car-focused. Vehicle sharing data are becoming the big data sources, perhaps second to none in the future. So that's going to be probably also a battlefield for all these big service providers, because this car data is going to be it's going to have a lot of value. And the vehicles are outsmarting the driver and the road authorities nowadays. The nice thing, or the exciting thing I should say about this, is this is no longer a linear development, because this ICT age with this exponential development, with this Moore's law behind it, that's fueling this system at this moment. So we can expect an exponential growth of these kind of trends.